welcome to the best damn move-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And guys, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And hey, listen, by the way, it is Friday. Congratulations, my friends, to making it through to the end of another triumphant week. May you have a fun weekend planned ahead of you, and then another week filled with glorious victory all the way through. And listen, guys, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And unfortunately, we got to start off the top with something that, isn't so great. I and a lot of other movie fans woke up this morning to the unfortunate news that screen legend Ian Holm had passed away at the age of 88. Now, understandably so, a lot of the audience is going to most, of course, fondly remember Ian Holm from playing the older version of Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings films. And of course, he made an appearance as well in the Hobbit films as well. Not a lot of people remember. You know what? There's a movie that I am particularly guilty of that we do not talk enough about, because it really is top 20, top 30, maybe at the outset, top 40, like one of the greatest movies of all time. It's Chariots of Fire. Bum, 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 bum. It's like the first piece of music I learned how to play on piano. Bum, 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 because it was really easy. But Chariots of Fire, Ian Holm got his one and only Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for that. He won the BAFTA for it, as a matter of fact. But he was in things like Fifth Element. He was in things like Brazil. His screen career spanned a lot of time and a lot of great classic movies. And there was something about the impassioned way that he would play his characters that I think resonated with a lot of people. Like the way, even if we just want to look at Lord of the Rings for a second, the way he would go, Gandalf, like there was something so impassioned about the way he emoted. You know what I mean? Again, if you just want to stick with Lord of the Rings, just even the subtle, beautiful, and powerful ways that he would take a ring out of his pocket and look at it. And just, there would be so much of that in his face. Now, he hadn't done a lot of acting in the past 6 years. I think the Hobbit films might have been the last thing that he really did, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he's really done much since then. So I don't know if he just retired. I honestly don't know if he was ailing or anything like that, but he was truly a treasure to watch on the screen in the different stages of his career, from the earlier movies he did all the way up to when he worked with Peter Jackson, who we'll be talking a little bit more about a little bit later on. So once again, the wonderful Ian Holm passes away at the age of 88. Like Rob likes to say, when you have an actor pass away at like an age like that, you don't want to be sorrowful. You want to imagine their life well lived. And he certainly had a wonderful career, and the screen has and will miss him. So there's that. Guys, what do you think about the career of Ian Holm? Do you have any highlight moments from him outside of the Lord of the Rings films? If they are, share them down in the comments section below. All right, guys. With that down, let's go off to one more off the top, which is kind of weird because this off the top is actually our main story today, but it came in really late. You guys know that I think probably not just the best animation studio in the business today, but probably the best studio period in the business today is Pixar. They don't just make the best animated movies. They consistently just make great movies, whether it's their shorts, their longs, whatever, but they are clearly head and shoulder above everybody else when it comes to the world of animation. Well, guess what, guys? There's a new contender in town. Speaking of Peter Jackson, he helped develop Weta Digital. That became like right up there with Industrial Lights and Magic as being like one of the top most respected visual effects companies in the world. Of course, Weta did a lot of the work on The Lord of the Rings, and they've continued to do great work ever since. Well, they're going through a major expansion. Peter Jackson is taking them through a major expansion here, where Peter Jackson and Weta are developing a brand new full animation studio that will be made to release feature films, television work, all that kind of stuff. There is a new senior player in town. Now, let me read this. I don't like to read the entire articles, but let me read this because there's a lot of good information in here. After a distinguished run as the visual effects house that brought to life Gollum, King Kong, and other incredible creatures for Peter Jackson's Middle-earth films, and other film spectacles, including James Cameron's Avatar sequels and Avengers Endgame, Weta Digital is making a major expansion. Jackson and Fran Walsh, that's his partner, a 25-year-old concern, is launching the offshoot Weta Animated to generate for the first time original content in animation for cinema and the streaming platform. Now we're going to jump down here a little bit because this is key as well. How involved is Peter Jackson going to be in this? Pretty damn involved. Majority owners Jackson and Walsh will underrate the creative ambitions of Weta Animation by scripting, producing, and directing several animated projects for the company. They are in the midst of working on a live action film that Jackson plans to direct, but they are determined to give their level best towards giving Hollywood a truly independent factory for state-of-the-art animated fare. And then this is what Jackson said. We are huge fans of animated storytelling and in all of its forms, but it can be a long, protracted, and often costly way to make movies. That's, in part, why we have created this company, to change the model and open the doors for filmmakers and storytellers who might not otherwise be given the chance to show what they can do, Jackson said in a statement. So once again, for those of you just joining us, this to me is honestly, as far as the industry goes, outside of movie theaters shutting down, this is the biggest piece of industry news that I can recall in the last decade. I mean, seriously, this might look like a little blip on your radar. This could have major long-term ramifications. You're taking a company that's as great in visual effects as Weta. And remember, visual effects, a lot of visual effects is just animation. A lot of visual effects today is in and of itself animation. We've had that discussion before. I remember even back in the day when I used to work at a visual effects company, yeah, we were technically a visual effects company, but we also had the word animation in the title of our company because while they are two different art forms, they are very close cousins. They're very close cousins. So we do visual effects for some movies, but then we would also do some little animation stuff at the same time. Weta clearly has an infrastructure, technology, and the talent to do great animation. The question becomes, just because you have a video camera doesn't mean you know how to make movies. Will they have great storytellers? Well, look what they're starting with. They're starting with Peter Jackson. Not only as their owner, he's going to be producing, writing, and directing. That's the key one, directing. He's going to be producing, writing, and directing a lot of feature films and then opening doors for other storytellers to come in and do that. I think this is fantastic news for two very important reasons. Important reason number one, I think Weta Digital paired with Peter Jackson, they're just going to make great movies. They'll make some bad ones, but I think they're going to make great movies. The talent there from a technical point of view, the talent there from the creative point of view, it's all there. Great thing number two about this story is this. Another major player in the world of animation. I'm a big fan of animated stuff. Good animated stuff. I don't like Marvel and DC straight-to-home video animated stuff, but I love animated features. And really, for the longest time, while other studios have put out some very good stuff, there hasn't been an animation studio like Pixar that has just consistently put out quality product the way they've done it. So to have another player come into the game to light the fire to the back of Pixar's heels and to give Pixar a run for its money and who knows, maybe even surpass Pixar, we're a long way from that. We're a long way from that. But I'm just saying, I think this is nothing but good. And I think the ultimate winners in all this are going to be you and me. I think the film fans, people who appreciate good animated films, getting Peter Jackson into the director chair a little bit more, all that kind of stuff. I think this is great news from top to bottom. So the question is for you guys, what do you think about this? Do you think Weta might be overstretching a little bit? Do you think just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you can make great movies on your own? Or do you trust the fact that Peter Jackson's there? Are you excited about it as me, or do you think it's not a big deal? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that stuff down, let's now move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Jeremy Shishabu, who writes, "Hey, John, my favorite film director is Edgar Wright. I think he is one of the most talented and entertaining filmmakers, especially when it comes to comedy. It's been announced that he will direct a kidnapping thriller, The Chain, based on the novel by Adrian McKinty. Jane Goldman will be writing the script. I'm always excited about Edgar doing new films, but after hearing the premise, I am 100% in. What do you think of the news?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, Edgar Wright is simply one of the most exciting filmmakers out there. He doesn't make Oscar bait films, but he just makes good, fun films, right? His last film, Baby Driver, was fantastic. Obviously, you go back to the stuff he's done with Peg and Frost. That stuff is all-time classic. We always know about that and talk about that. And I always look forward to anything that Edgar Wright is going to do or put out. So now he's got this new thing coming out called The Chain. And I got to tell you, the premise for this movie sounds incredible. Listen to this. The Chain tells the story of Rachel, who learns that her 11-year-old daughter has been kidnapped. The only way to get her back is to kidnap another child. Her daughter will be released only when that next victim's parents also kidnap another child. If Rachel doesn't kidnap another child, or if that child's parents don't kidnap a child, her daughter will be murdered. She is now part of the chain. Dun, dun, dun. A terrifying and meticulous chain letter-like kidnapping scheme that turns parents from victims into criminals. That is the summation of The Chain. And I will tell you what, that sounds I love movies that give you a premise of what the hell do you do? What do you do? What do you do if you're in this situation? And listen to this. You find out your kid gets kidnapped and you got to kidnap another kid to get your kid released. Great. Oh, except for one thing. You kidnapping another kid isn't enough to get your kid released. You now have to get another set of parents to kidnap another kid. Once that happens, then your kid gets released. And it creates this fail-safe of screwdom. You are totally screwed. Is that a word? Did I just make up a word? Screwdom? It creates a system of absolute screwdom. I love the sounds of this. I love this. This sounds fantastic. And you know what? Even though a lot of times when we think of a guy like Edgar Wright, we will think of lightheartedness, we'll think of comedy. Even though there's some great dramatic chops in, like, say, Baby Driver, it's also a lot of levity, a lot of lightheartedness. But when you go deeper than that, and you really think about the stuff that he does, I think his storytelling style, he has a very high-paced storytelling type of style. Even if you go to the Cornetto trilogy films, things have a very quick pace to them, happen very, very quickly and very fast. And I think that sort of sensibility will lend itself to a thriller style sounding story like The Chain very well. So you've got a couple of pieces of the puzzle here. You've got an incredible sounding premise. I'll tell you what, even if it wasn't Edgar Wright directing this, I'm completely on board. I mean, just the premise of this story sounds amazing to me. What the hell do you do? I love it. You add on top of that a director like Edgar Wright, who's just a terrific director on his own, but also his particular sensibilities compared and matched up with a story like this. I think this is a match made in heaven. Listen, I'll be excited for any movie that Edgar Wright is doing, but this one in particular sounds like I don't know that I've been as excited. No, I'll say I don't think I've ever been as excited for a new movie from Edgar Wright as I am about this one. I was really excited about Scott Pilgrim. I was really excited about Baby Driver, but there's something about him doing a story like this that really gets my engine revving. I haven't been this excited for him doing a movie maybe ever. Question is for you guys. What do you think about the sounds of The Chain? Do you think it sounds as great as I do? Maybe you're like, John, there's a lot of potential holes there. This might not work. However, what do you think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, then. With that down, let's now move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Xandersaurus, who writes, "Greetings, John." Well, greetings, Xandersaurus. You probably already know or read this from your email because I just got an email from AMC Theaters that's addressed all stub members and guests that they're planning to reopen on Wednesday, July the 15th with 450 theaters. There's no information about how they'll handle the AMC stub members like A-List, Premier, and Insiders. What are your thoughts? Are you happy or concerned of going back this mid-July? Thanks. All right, thanks for sending that in, man. And yes, it's now official. I told you guys that I had received word a number of weeks ago that AMC was indeed going to be open again by mid-July. And now they've made it official. They are indeed opening in mid-July. This comes to us from the CEO of AMC, who writes, "We didn't rush to reopen." AMC CEO and President Adam Aron, who was not CEO or president when I was at AMC. Just, there was a different CEO when I was, so I don't know Adam Aron, said in an interview with Variety, "There were some jurisdictions in some states, such as Georgia and Texas, that allowed theaters to reopen in mid-May, but we opted to remain closed so we could give the country time to get a better handle on the coronavirus. We also wanted to use this time to figure out how to best open and how to do so safely." All right, that comes to us from AMC. Now listen, there's a couple of things in their statement here that I like very much. Number one, I was really impressed. Like when Georgia and Texas, and there were a couple other places, I believe, opened up and said, you know what? Certain places are allowed to reopen, including movie theaters. While I am very happy for those states where movie theaters did, and some smaller theaters did reopen and showed some classic films, and that's great. I was also pretty impressed with AMC that they decided, you know what? We want to make sure that we have all of our new procedures in place. We want to make 100% sure that we have our safety protocols in place. We want to make sure that we have had time to properly train our staff on how to properly clean everything and how we're going to operate this, and that they gave themselves enough time to properly figure out how are we going to set up this whole system here? How are we going to set it up? How are we going to use our pre-assigned seating model to make sure people, if they're with somebody, they can still sit with them, but we still maintain social distance with any other active viewers or patrons that are in the theaters. Bottom line is, I was impressed with AMC that they chose to stay closed for a little while longer to make sure they had all their ducks in a row. So on that level, I was impressed and I was happy with what I heard. There is, however, one concerning thing to me. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a hot button to some people, and that's fine. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just telling you what I think. And you can agree or disagree with me all that you want. The one part that is concerning to me, not just about AMC's response to this, but there have been other theater chains that have asserted this as well, is that while they're going to do all these great safety protocols, they're going to do these in between these deep cleanings of the theaters, social distancing, tons of hand sanitizer everywhere. All staff is going to be masked and gloved at all times and staggering show times. Again, there is nothing you can do to guarantee you can go and not get COVID-19. But there are many things that can be done that reduce the risk, that minimize the risk of you getting it. And the one thing that they have decided not to do is require people coming into the theater to be wearing masks. Now, the CEO of AMC said, "We have decided that we are requiring our staff to wear masks, and we are highly encouraging people coming into the theaters," this is much like Cinemark, "not to wear masks. However, we don't want to get drawn into a political debate," he said. "We don't want to get drawn into a political debate, so we are not going to require people to wear masks when they come in." I've got two different thoughts on this. One on one side, one on the other. Let me talk about the one side first. Wearing masks during a pandemic, when the vast majority of the medical community are saying this is a smart thing to do, and we've seen the countries that have kicked COVID-19's ass the best are the ones that have more heavy use of masks. And remember, masks don't necessarily help prevent you from getting something. Masks' primary advantage are that if you have it and don't even know it, it will reduce the risk of you spreading it to other people, right? It's not about protecting yourself. It's about protecting the people around you. I don't know how this became a political issue. Is wearing seatbelts a political issue? No. Wearing seatbelts is not a political issue. It's just common sense. And if you're not going to be smart enough to put on a seatbelt when you're driving, well, then we passed laws that we're just going to protect you from yourself, for heaven's sakes, and we are going to require you to wear seatbelts. I don't hear anybody crying, the government's trampling on my freedom because they're making you wear a seatbelt. It's just common sense. It's safety. Does a seatbelt guarantee that you won't get killed in a car accident? Of course it doesn't. But does it reduce the risk of you getting seriously injured or killed in a car accident? Yes, it does. And so we have enough common sense to put on a seatbelt. It's not comfortable. They're not convenient. I'd rather not wear a seatbelt, but it's common sense, and we have laws that are passed to make it so. So we put on a seatbelt because it reduces the risks of us getting seriously hurt or injured in a car accident. So if that's not a political issue, why, during a pandemic, is the idea of wearing a mask a political issue? That I don't understand. I listen, and by the way, in certain places like California, AMC might be able to say, we're not going to require people to wear masks. They might be able to say that, but it looks like in places like California, maybe some other states, it's going to be law that if you're going to be a public place of business, you have to require people to be wearing masks when they come in. Obviously, you can take it off for a few minutes when you're eating something or whatever, and that's fine. Again, as long as you have it on most of the time, you're reducing the risk of spreading anything. That's all we can ask. All we can ask is do what can be done to reduce the risk. That's all we're asking. We know you can't eliminate the risk. We understand that. There is no eliminating the risk, but you can do the things you can do to reduce the risk. That's the one side of my brain. All right? That's the one side of my brain. The other side of my brain is challenging the left side of my brain a little bit, because let's take, for example, restaurants, right? I've told you before that one of my favorite places to hang out in Burbank, it's this restaurant and hookah lounge. It's this big outdoor patio. I love hanging out there. I love working there. I like taking my iPad there and working there for a few hours. It's great. Now, they do a lot of good things at this restaurant. They take temperature checks when you walk in. They make you apply hand sanitizer, and they have a rule that you're wearing your mask when you come into our establishment and that you wear your mask as you're leaving. But I have to admit, when you're sitting at your table, which they make sure they staggered their seating to make sure your table isn't right up beside another person's table, you have a good amount of distance between you and the next table. So you have social distancing. Most people, admittedly, me too, once you're sitting at a safe distance from somebody else, people take their masks off as they're sitting there conversing and eating and drinking their meal throughout the thing. And I've never felt threatened. I've never felt threatened being there in that environment. So while on the one half of my brain, I'm like, this is idiotic. You absolutely must require people to wear masks, and they should only be taking them off for those brief moments that they're eating their popcorn or drinking their soda. Otherwise, have it on, blah, 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 blah. But on the other hand, when I'm in a restaurant, which I've only been in a restaurant, the same restaurant like twice now, and I'm sitting certain distance from people, and I know everybody in here has been temperature checked. You can have COVID-19 and not have a temperature, but again, it's about reducing risk, not eliminating. I know everybody in here has been temperature checked. I know everybody in here is sanitized, and they're all at least 6 or 7 or 8 feet away from me. For maybe I should or shouldn't, but for some reason I feel comfortable. So if I feel comfortable there, if I'm in a movie theater and if they have people spaced, 6 feet away from me, why wouldn't I feel comfortable there? Listen, I'm saying all this to let you guys know that even I am trying to figure this all out. Like, even I'm not 100% sure of where I am on that. It's like, yes, you should absolutely wear masks. But if everybody's going to be 6 feet away from you and you have that distance and you're okay with that situation in one environment, shouldn't you be? Again, I don't know. You guys are sitting there watching me trying to process it out myself. So I don't know how I feel about it. I'll let you know what my initial reaction is. My initial reaction is, yeah, they should have had people wearing masks. My initial gut reaction is all movie theaters should make it a requirement. And it's cool if for certain periods of time you remove your mask to eat and drink and whatever, and then you put the mask back on. That's my initial reaction. Is it as bad as I think it is? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm kind of processing through this myself, guys. I'm processing through it myself. So I'm very curious. How do you feel about that? Because right now, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go to AMC. Well, in California, they might require people to wear masks, so maybe I will. But I mean, I'm still processing it out. Where are you on this? And what do you think about now? Regal, Cinemark, AMC, all the biggest movie theater chains in the world have confirmed they will be open mid-July, at least a week or more in advance from when Mulan opens on the 21st and when Tenet opens on the 24th and Tenet opens on the 31st. What are you guys thinking about it all? It's a huge hot button topic, I know, but let's talk to each other respectfully about it. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Joey Luca. And Joey Luca writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Rob's not here today. News has come out that a Mike Tyson biopic is moving forward, and multi-time nominated and Oscar-winning Jamie Foxx is going to be starring as the boxing icon. Of course, this is very old news. It's just been delayed or staggered or stagnant or on the shelf for a very, very long time. Personally, there is something about this casting that just clicked for me. I think it's great, and I can really see him as this great character. Your thoughts? All right, so yeah, once again, Jamie Foxx playing Mike Tyson is a piece of news that has been around forever. I mean, a long, long, long time. And then nothing happened. And it became stagnant and it went on the shelf. Well, Jamie Foxx was just being interviewed, and he was being asked about this, and this is what Jamie Foxx said. On Burnham's Instagram live series, Catching Up on Wednesday, the relevant portion begins around the 53-minute mark. The actor, Jamie Foxx, said the biopic of Mike Tyson is moving forward. When asked for a definitive answer, it's a definite yes, Foxx said. Look, doing biographies is a tough thing. Sometimes it takes 20 years to get them done, but we officially got the real ball rolling. All right, so that comes to us from Jamie Foxx, which is great. Okay, this is the first thing we've heard about this Tyson biopic actually having any movement in a long time. I do want to make one thing clear there. I hate being the wet blanket, but do let me make one thing clear here. Just because Jamie Foxx said a certain thing a certain way doesn't mean it is absolutely 100% happening. You know, Jamie Foxx said, yes, it's going to happen. And then he gave two disclaimers. One, you know, it can take up to 20 years to get a biopic made. And then the second thing is we've officially got the ball rolling. Getting the ball rolling is not the official green light from the studio. That they still don't have. Okay, let's be clear about that. That's Jamie Foxx saying that. It has not been confirmed that an actual physical green light has been given to the film yet. That could still be a little ways off. But clearly Jamie Foxx feels like this is going to happen. This is the thing that they're going to do, and this is going to happen. And that's great. That's great. The one thing I have always been interested in this movie. First of all, Iron Mike Tyson is one of the most, what's the word we should say, larger than life sports figures we've ever had, right? He's simply one of the larger than life sports figures that we've ever had in our culture. So there's something interesting about that. Having a guy, an Academy Award winner of the talent level of a Jamie Foxx playing Mike Tyson is another big win. That's another big win. That's great. So I have always been very fascinated by the prospects of this movie. The problem, of course, that I've always felt with this movie is going to be the same problem, although maybe not to the same degree, as the idea of a Michael Jackson biopic. You know, we've talked a lot before about a potential Michael Jackson biopic, but it becomes very problematic. Because if you do a Michael Jackson biopic, which things do you include and which things do you leave out? Because there are a lot of people out there who think that Michael Jackson is absolutely 100% innocent of any accusations ever made against him, and they think they have some solid proof and evidence to back that up. And therefore, if you make a biopic about Michael Jackson and you show a lot of this other stuff, that's going to piss off a lot of people. However, there's also a lot of people out there who are completely convinced that Michael Jackson was, at least to some degree, guilty of the things that he was accused of, and feel that there is solid evidence for that point of view as well. So if you make a Michael Jackson biopic and you gloss over all that controversial stuff, is it going to become a big drama? I 100% believe that's the reason we haven't gotten a Michael Jackson biopic already. Is that a studio figuring, how do you even do this without pissing off half of the country and getting everybody mad at you? To a smaller degree, there are elements of that in Mike Tyson's life. And how much do you gloss over that stuff, particularly between him and his ex-wife and other stories? Or how much do you embrace that? And I've always kind of wondered if that would be one of the snags that would hold up a Mike Tyson biopic as well. But I mean, who knows? Maybe Mike Tyson is just at a place. Mike Tyson seems to be at a very serenity now place in his life where maybe Mike Tyson's like, you know what? Go into all that controversial stuff. Do it. Do it. Go into it. It needs to be talked about. Maybe that's where he's at in his life. Maybe it's other things holding it up. I'm not really sure. I do know this. I still would not bet money that this movie's going to happen. I still would not bet money this movie's going to happen. I also wouldn't bet against it at this point. But I will say I am personally still as fascinated as I've ever been to see this biopic about, again, one of the most prominent sports figures in history being played by one of the truly great actors today in Jamie Foxx. I want to see it. I'm just kind of 50-50 right now on whether or not they will actually do it. The question for you guys is, what do you think about this whole thing? Do you think they will or should move forward with the Mike Tyson biopic starring Jamie Foxx? Do you think it's actually going to happen? When you read Foxx's words, you think, yeah, that sounds like a 100% lock guarantee? Or are you like me where it's like, yeah, there's still a lot of disclaimers in that statement and we're not hearing from the studio that it's greenlit, so let's not get too excited yet. What do you think about that right now? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down, we're going to move into our live questions part of the show. And you can get a question or comment on the show right now by simply using our tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. You can just go click on it there, or you can enter it here, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question or comment on the second half of the show, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time, and all of us here thank you for that. But in the meantime, I am going to do what I do every day. I'm going to take a quick little short break here. Going to rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs. I'm going to go refill my drink. So give me just a moment here, guys. Hang tight, don't go anywhere, and I will be right back. And we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. And now let's dive into your live questions. We're going to get things started off here with the movie idiot who writes, "Hey, John, I too got hit by a content claim for a similar image from the Bill and Ted 3 trailer. The studio behind that movie is Orion. That makes two studios with your Paramount claim. This is very concerning. What are your thoughts?" Well, I mean, it's not just Orion and Paramount. Like, I'm not the first person this has happened to. Let's be clear about that. I am not the first person this has happened to. This has been a problem around YouTube for a while. Now, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, I talked on my show yesterday about how Paramount filed a copyright claim against one of my videos talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer. The first Sonic the Hedgehog trailer came out. And as I do with everything, I had an image of the trailer for context, criticism, and critique to talk about it. It is the simplest, most basic, straightforward application of fair use doctrine. It is absolutely 100% protected under fair use doctrine. Now, most people get content problems. They use video clips and audio, and they have music and all that kind of stuff. You're getting into really dangerous ground there. I had a single still image from a trailer up for context as we were talking about it, and they filed a content claim against me. And it's probably, now listen, lots of YouTubers have been dealing with this. And that's why a lot of YouTubers, including me, have been considering moving off of YouTube. I've been putting in a position where I have to consider moving off of YouTube. I'm not saying I'm going to move off YouTube, but believe me, I am looking at every other possible option because it's just becoming problematic. So, and believe me, I am not the first person to be hit with this. A lot of people have been hit a lot more than me and a lot more seriously than me. Believe that. But because I do everything correctly, because I don't use video clips and I don't use audio excerpts and I don't use copywritten music and I don't use any of that kind of stuff, I stay very, very safely in the lane of proper application of the fair use doctrine. I stay very much, to a fault, I stay in that lane. And they still hit me. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to approach that, what I'm going to do. I might do nothing. I might find a good option or alternative, but it is something that a lot of YouTubers have faced and will continue to face until this all gets figured out. And I don't know if it's going to be figured out anytime soon. All right, Tristan Larson writes, "What did you think of the Al-Atla episode of," oh, you're talking about, guys, please don't use abbreviations. Please don't. Please write out what you're talking about. Anyway, Avatar: The Last Airbender episode, The Puppet Master, the one with the bloodbender Hama. I haven't heard you talk about it yet, and it's my favorite episode of TV ever. It's so well written, disturbing, and chilling. Can't believe Nick let them air it. I'm going to be honest with you, Tristan. Not my favorite episode. Not my favorite episode. I mean, I thought first of all, the notion of bloodbending was, I mean, that should be an obvious application. Like 90% of the human body is water. So of course a water bender should be able to control the human body. So to me, it was like a no duh. But honestly, I didn't think it's that well written of a story. And the whole thing about she kept them all prisoner in the mountain, like, how did that make any sense? Why do that? That made no sense to me whatsoever. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I didn't hate the episode or anything like that, but I got to say it's probably in my bottom 5. Probably in my bottom 5 or 6 of my favorite episodes. Because I like Airbender very, very much. It's just, but to me personally, Puppet Master wasn't one of the best. But that's just me. That's just me. For you, it hit the right chord and you loved it, and that's awesome. It just didn't have the same impact on me. That's all. All right, next up. Willow writes, "What did you think of Hell or High Water?" Oh my God, I love Hell or High Water. Are you kidding me? That movie is insane. That movie's I remember I saw that, me, John Schnepp, and Christian Harloff went to go watch that one afternoon. And we all came out and we just stood outside of the theater and like, blah, 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 and we just talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. Taylor Sheridan wrote it, and he of course has done a ton of great stuff like, why am I freezing on his name? Ben Foster. Fabulous. I love Ben Foster, Chris Pine, Jeff Bridges. God, I love that movie. Anyway, I just watched it for the first time, and while I thought the performances were great, the story and social commentary felt lacking. I'm just sitting here talking about how much I loved it, and you say you found it lacking. Maybe I'm missing something. No, Willow, you're not missing anything. You just watched it, and it didn't do it for you. It just didn't hit you the same way that it hit me. That's all. The problem isn't you. It's not that you missed something. It's that you watched it, and we all experience art in different ways. Every piece of art hits us all in different, unique ways. And it just so happened that you watched Hell or High Water and it didn't do it for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't mean the problem's with you. I love it. And I could sit here all day and give a laundry list about all the things that I love about this movie. But just because you didn't, that doesn't mean you missed something. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Not at all. But I personally did indeed love it. I think Taylor Sheridan is going to be a guy we're going to be hearing from for a long, 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 long time. All right. Jason writes, "Hey, John and Co. Starting a shared movie universe website where I watch and review all the films of a franchise. Was curious about your thoughts on the watch order for the X-Men movies. Their continuity is confusing. I was thinking Origins, Wolverine, First Class, Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, X-Men, X2, X3, The Wolverine, Days of Future Past, Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, and finally Logan. Also wondering about a new Star Trek order for the Abrams films, original Star Trek films. Thanks." Well, I mean, here's the thing. I've always joked, but it's true. In the hollowed halls of Fox Studios, there's a big marble wall, and chiseled into the wall, it says X-Men, continuity, schmontinuity. The continuity for X-Men isn't confusing. There is no continuity. Listen, I love the Fox X-Men films, but there is no continuity, right? The X-Men films do not hold to any sort of canon. There's no canon they hold to. That's why in one movie, Sabretooth is this. And then another movie, Sabretooth is something completely different. In one movie, Caliban is this. In another movie, Caliban is something completely different. At the end of the one movie, oh, boo-hoo, Professor X is dead. And the next movie, he's just suddenly back. How'd he come back? Don't worry about it. We don't need to talk about it. I mean, there is no continuity. It's continuity, schmontinuity. What is clear is that when they were making the X-Men films, they were, let's make this a sequel to X-Men. But if you as a storyteller ever bump into a continuity problem, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, there are franchises where that becomes more important. Obviously, Star Wars, Marvel even. But X-Men, they just didn't care. It's like, hey, we want to do this thing Professor X, but we're not quite sure how to bridge the gap of how the last movie ended with him being killed, even with the post-credit scene, and how we get him to where we want him to be here, Fox executives. How should we manage that? Don't worry about it. Nobody cares. That's basically it, right? And guess what? It worked for them. It worked for them. They didn't need to have continuity. They didn't need to adhere to any sort of strict canon. Some properties is better that you do. Some properties, it doesn't matter if you do. And the X-Men films worked great. The X-Men films worked great. So as far as a watch order, it doesn't matter. Me personally, lacking anything else, I say err on the side of the release order. So I would say watch it in release order. That's how I err. I just watch it in release order. That's my thoughts on that. But anyway, good on you for starting a site like that and exercising your film fandom that way, Jason. I think that's awesome. Well done. All right. Peter Vincent Q writes, "Hey, John. I totally enjoyed the performance of Cate Blanchett in Thor Ragnarok as Hela. I loved her in that as well. I thought she was great. I felt like it was such a waste, quote unquote, killing her character off at the end of the movie. Do you think that she can still return, and should Marvel consider her return? Thanks." Well, here's the thing, Peter. One of the things that I always say is this. The characters are not there to serve the actors. The actors are there to serve the characters. And the story is not there to serve the characters. The characters are there to serve the story. And the Hela death scene, that was part of the story. That was necessary for the story. I didn't think it was a waste at all. Listen, it's not like a Darth Maul situation in The Phantom Menace where you had this incredibly gripping character and you barely used him at all in the movie. You gave him one great fight scene and then he was gone. Hela was a major character in that film, right? It's not like they just used her for 2 minutes and then she was gone. Cate Blanchett playing Hela was a key, important figure in that movie. And the character had her role to play. And then the climax, part of the climax of the film, was them figuring out a way to stop her and kill her. So No, I don't think it was a waste killing her off. That was the story. That served the story. And that's the most important thing. Now, however, you're asking the question is, can she still return? Remember, we are talking about the Marvel fake death cinematic universe. This is the Marvel fake death cinematic universe. Nobody's ever dead. Nobody's ever dead. So they've killed Loki 4 times. He's still there. You know, I mean, they've killed Thor a couple of times. He's still there. They killed Black Panther. He's still there. They killed Nick Fury. He's still there. It doesn't matter. Unless your name is Quicksilver, you come back. They all come back. And I guarantee you, maybe not Nick this year, maybe not next year, maybe not even within the next 3 years, Robert Downey Jr. is going to be back as Tony Stark. Maybe not as Iron Man, but as Tony Stark. Guarantee it. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe not in 3 years. But Judd, I heard Robert Downey Jr. say on the Joe Rogan. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, he's going to be back. So of course, she could come back. They could bring her back. It would be the easiest thing in the world because death schmeth, they don't care about it. It is the Marvel fake death universe. It has always been my one giant critique of the MCU because you guys know how much I love the MCU. I love the MCU. But my one giant critique has always been, Like, for instance, when Tony dies in Endgame, yeah, there are some people in the theaters like, oh, Tony's dead. I mean, that's good. That's good. You're getting that emotional reaction out of the audience. Oh, no, Tony's dead. So sad. Right? And that's good. But me, I was like, meh. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a good scene. But I know he's going to be back. Just like at the end of Infinity War, it's like, oh, no, T'Challa died. He dusted. Boo-hoo. But I'm like, because I know he's coming back. I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, but I was meh. It's a great scene. It's a great scene. But it didn't have that emotional kick in the face that you want to get from scenes like, because I know he's not actually dead. He's coming back. This is all just temporary, right? And that's one of the drawbacks of Marvel's fake death philosophy is that it takes away a lot of the emotional impact for what could be heavy scenes. So even when Thanos grabs Loki, who is like one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and breaks his neck and says, no resurrections this time. Yeah, you say that, Thanos, and that's cool. Loki will be back. And sure enough, very next movie, he's back, right? So yeah, can Hela come back? Yes, Hela can come back. I don't think it was a waste at all to kill her. I thought that was the culmination of the story, and I thought it worked great. But don't think that death for a second precludes Marvel from bringing a character back. Not in the least, Peter. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John and friends, with movies beginning to start filming again in the era of social distancing, how will that work with actors having physical contact with each other? Will this change the dynamics of the interaction of actors on film? Thank you. No, you're not going to see any difference. Basically, it's going to be like UFC fighters, right? They have UFC fights going on right now, where fighters are literally getting in the ring and punching each other in the face. It's glorious. Anyway, but what they do is they get those people in a place. This is how they did it with the UFC. They got all the people into a place. They get tested. They get isolated. And they get kept in quarantine. And then they get tested again. And then once all that's clear, they've been tested a couple of times. They've been quarantined. Now we can bring them into the empty arena and have them fight. And everybody other than the fighters have to have masks on and gloves on, blah. But we know everybody's tested. The people, the other fighter that this fighter is going to fight, they've also been tested and isolated, and we know they're clean and everything's good, blah, blah, blah. They'll do something similar like that for movie sets. We were just talking about how Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Dominion, Jurassic World 3 Dominion, Warner Brothers is spending like $5 million on their safety protocols for that movie starting to shoot again. So they're going to make damn sure before Chris Pratt does a scene with Bryce Dallas Howard or anybody else in that movie that Chris Pratt has been tested, then tested again, and been isolated for a certain period of time, and that he's good. And Chris will know that Bryce Dallas Howard has gone through the same thing. And so they both know they're good, they're clean, they can do all their interactions on screen. So it's going to be a pain in the ass for a while. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but it's doable. And the UFC has shown that it works. So yeah, I think they've got it figured out. I think they've got it figured out, and I think it'll work just fine. All right, next up. Thanks for writing that in, Anonymous. Kazam writes, big if, but if Venom and Morbius are in the MCU, and I don't think they are, do you think any MCU characters outside of Spider-Man will interact with or reference any Sony characters and vice versa? Or will Sony be like the Netflix shows, which MCU never references them, but Sony refers to the MCU? I think if anything, it's going to be that second part. Because remember, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was technically in the MCU. Daredevil was technically in the MCU. Luke Cage was technically in the MCU, but it was a very one-way relationship because the MCU never referenced any of those shows. The MCU films never referenced or acknowledged any of those shows. I have a feeling because Kevin Feige does not want to have what other people are doing creatively affect what he does creatively. Quite frankly, that's pretty smart. So I could see, like we saw in the Spider-Man, we saw in the Morbius trailer, Michael Keaton pop up, right? And we saw the Spider-Man mural. It is possible that Sony is free to reference the MCU, but don't expect to see Kevin Feige reference Morbius. Because if they reference Morbius in an MCU movie, now if the Sony filmmakers decide, hey, Morbius is going to, in our next Morbius movie, St. Louis is going to be swallowed into a giant sinkhole and disappear. Well, Kevin Feige doesn't want to be handcuffed to what Sony's doing. He doesn't want to have, well, if they did that, that means St. Louis has got to be disappeared in my cinematic universe. So I have a feeling, and I don't know this, I'm not speaking on the basis of any insider information. This is just me, analyzing it and speculating here, just like you. But if it happens at all, I see it happening that second way. The way that they did it with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the way that they did it with Jessica Jones, the way that they did it with the Defenders is that, yeah, they can all reference the MCU, and that's great, but don't expect to see the MCU reference them. I don't know that. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing, but that's how I kind of feel it'll probably work out. All right, next up, Marie Seafring writes, have you ever seen the Sidney Lumet's last film, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead? Yes, I did. That movie was a bit of a shocker to me. I'll talk about that in a second. It stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke, Albert Finney. Don't forget about Marissa Tomei. And by the way, it also has Michael Shannon. Before like almost anybody knew who Michael Shannon was, he was in there as well. Anyway, Ethan Hawke and Albert Finney. I just ran across a listing for it recently, and it sounds like an interesting crime thriller. I like it a lot. But listen, even though I should have known, because Sidney's movies are a certain way, I should have known better. But when I first looked at it and read the synopsis, I kind of thought, oh, this is going to be kind of comedic. Oh, it's not very comedic. It is more of a crime thriller. It really is. And it's quite good. And the performances are astounding. Seeing Handsome Hawk and Philip Seymour Hoffman acting off each other is terrific. And then you throw in Marissa Tomei, who is Marissa frickin' Tomei. I mean, come on. No other commentary needed. Yeah, now, don't get me wrong. It's not like Casino or, Goodfellas level crime thriller. It's not necessarily that, but it's a good little movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. If for no other reasons, the performances are fantastic. So Willow or Marie, if you're asking me whether it's something you should check out, absolutely. I say check it out. I can't guarantee you'll like it. It's not like one of the greatest films of all time or anything, but I thought it's quite good, so you should check it out and give it a shot if it interests you. All right, next up. Senpaigar writes, a biopic coming out called Eddie's Kingdom is about a local man's obsession with creating a theme park on Rattlesnake Island near Peachland, British Columbia, Canada. I live in West Kelowna, BC, just a few minutes north. Read about it on IMDb, an interesting story. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of it. Of course, anything that involves my homeland of Canada, of course, I'm going to be interested, so I am interested about that. By the way, I've been to Kelowna. I love Kelowna. Man, there's so many places in British Columbia. Guys, there's a reason a lot of Hollywood stuff films in British Columbia. In and around Vancouver. For my American friends who's like, what's British Columbia? That's the province that Vancouver, the city of Vancouver is in. British Columbia and like Western Alberta is like some of the most beautiful earth in the world. If you've never been up there, you really should go. There's a lot of stunningly gorgeous places there. Anyway, I was not aware of this one, Senpaigar, but now it'll be on my radar and I'll keep my ear open for it. Thanks for sharing that, man. All right, Suthius writes, hey guys, in a fun Facebook topic, a person posted that this year would be written by Stephen King, directed by Tarantino, and narrated by Sam Jackson. One guy had me rolling saying M. Night Shyamalan will be writing because this year's been confusing the hell out of him. Yeah, no kidding. I've seen so many great movie memes just talking about 2020. What an absolute crap show 2020 has been. I mean, come on. We got The Gentleman. That's great. But I mean, for everybody, first of all, listen, on this show, we talk about this little box of entertainment movies, right? We talk about movies in the movie world, and that's what we talk about on this show. So we always talk about different issues as they relate to and as they affect this little box. But to get serious for a second, I mean, how many people have died? I mean, I know the coronavirus alone, just in the States, is I think over 150,000 U.S. deaths from coronavirus. Let me just look this up. 2.2 million people. Sorry. Let me rephrase. 2.2 million people have it this year, just in a couple of months. This one site I'm looking at is saying a higher number than the other, but we'll go with the lower one. Right now, it's 120,000 people have died in just a couple of months. We've got a lot of social unrest, but the social unrest isn't there. The cause of the social unrest has been bubbling there for decades, but is now coming to the surface. And people have finally had enough. We've got, I mean, it's been terrible. It's been terrible. And it's been an awful year. And what is one of our big defense mechanisms? I know this is true for me, one of our big defense mechanisms when crappy stuff is going on is laugh at it, right? That is my, other people don't like that, but it's true for a lot of people, including me. My instant line of defense mechanism is I laugh at a situation. I remember about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, there were these massive fires in LA, and we came home one night and the hills, we live in Burbank, so we're in the valley, and the hills right behind our house, I put up the video camera, took video of it. Look, the hills are on fire, could be heading this way. And I was just laughing my head off. I was laughing in it. And a lot of people got mad. Like, John, you could lose your home and other people losing their homes. What's so funny about this? It's it's not funny. It's just my defense mechanism. And I think a lot of people have been putting up a lot of memes about how crappy this year has been. And you're right. 2020, if it was a movie, is a movie that was written by Stephen King and directed by Quentin Tarantino. I think you're right on the money with that. All right, anyway. Ryan Lohner writes, the firing of Hartley Sawyer is now looking even more hollow, as Warner Brothers apparently has no problem at all with the horrible stuff J.K. Rowling is saying on Twitter right now. Well, again, I'm not going to get into that. I am simply not getting into that. We leave that stuff for TMZ. Now, listen, if for whatever reason, if Warner Brothers decides to pull the plug on Fantastic Beasts 3, okay, now it's a movie issue and we'll talk about it. But what did you hear what this celebrity is saying on Twitter? I'm not going to get drawn into that. I'm just going to stay out of that altogether. I appreciate you asking about it, but I'm going to stay out of that altogether. All right. Greg said the one thing for me though about Warner Brothers is I'll say this: the inconsistency that Warner Brothers is displaying is very concerning to me. Look, if you have a position, fine. Say what your position is and then hold the line on that position. And we can agree or disagree about what your position is, but I can at least respect that you have your position and you're holding the line. In firing this dude, which is, I'm not saying they shouldn't have fired him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they shouldn't have. But Hartley, what he did was not so dissimilar to what James Gunn did. There are some differences. There are some differences in the circumstances. But as soon as Disney let James Gunn go, Warner Brothers hired him right up, which I think was the right move, but I'm just saying. But also more concerning to me is the whole Ezra Miller thing. Now, you guys know I'm an Ezra Miller fan. It's not popular to say, but I like Ezra Miller as Flash. I know that's not the popular thing to say, but it is how I feel. I really like Ezra Miller as Flash. But how do you have, 8 years ago, you tweeted this, and so we fire you. But then on the other hand, you got an Ezra Miller, we have you out at a bar grabbing a woman by the throat and throwing her to the ground. But we're going to do nothing about that. We fire one guy, but we do absolutely nothing and don't even reference it, and we don't address it, and we don't talk about it, and we just cover it up. Where's the consistency? Like, how come one guy gets fired and the other doesn't? How come one guy gets the benefit of the doubt and a second chance and the other guy doesn't? Are we saying that saying something on Twitter is worse than physically doing something in real life? Or is it Ezra's a bigger star, so he gets a pass? I mean, I'm not saying what they should or should not have done with Hartley. I'm not. It's a difficult position their studio was in. They had to make a decision, whatever. I'm just saying I want to see Warner Brothers show some consistency. What is your position, Warner Brothers? And then be consistent with it. If you're a very lenient, forgiving, second chance kind of system, and you want to give both Hartley and Ezra a pass, okay. We can debate it, but at least we know what your position is and you're being consistent. If you're we are hard line of public behavior because it affects the public perception of our properties, and so we're firing Ezra and we're firing Hartley, okay. We can debate that, but at least we know what your position is and you're sticking with it. It is the inconsistency of Warner Brothers here that really drives me a little bit crazy. But anyway, there's that. All right, Greg Scott Bailey writes, a long one of 6. Okay, let's get into this. Greg Scott Bailey writes, fun fact, Sylvester Stallone was offered $350,000 for the Rocky script with only $106 I've heard the story, with only $106 in his bank, no car, and was going to sell his dog. His condition was to star in the film. They countered to pay him scale. The movie was budgeted at $1.1 million and made a total of $225 million worldwide, won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Editing. While most remember the training or fight scenes, the film's dramatic story also showed heart, love, and grit to rise above the hardships in life we all face. It showed the toxic relationship Paulie with now emotionally controlling how emotionally controlling he was over his sister, but later motivated Adrian to stand up for her, to her brother and better her life, even though they did still love Paulie. For me, I've let a lot of my life go the past 10 years. I've gained an uncomfortable amount of weight, barely want to get out of bed, some days because my muscles have no strength. All I did was go to work and come home and sleep for so long. New job moved me from Seattle to Atlanta last December. I like Atlanta. Started walking in a nearby park. A hill reminded me of the museum steps that Rocky ran up. Couldn't do it the first day. Barely made it today. I'm not as winded. It's slowly getting easier though. Rocky theme was in my head. Watched Rocky and Rocky 2 tonight. Ordered 4 cases of Zevia. Zevia Cola. Sponsor me, you sons of bitches. See, people are buying your stupid product because I'm drinking it all the time. Anyway. Ordered 4 cases of Zevia, sponsor him, you sons of bitches, to get off soda. Movies/stories can be motivating and inspirational, can even be the nudge we may need to better ourselves. Greg, this is one of the best messages I've ever got. I know, because it's so true. You know, somebody wrote in yesterday on the show and straight up asked me, why do movies matter so much to you? Why do you love the movies so passionately, right? And I talked about that. And I won't repeat everything I said yesterday, but I really went into about why I don't think that movies are a nice distraction. Movies matter. Movies matter because it's what we are as a species. We are storytellers, and the stories we tell have deep impact on us. They really do. You know, I shared the story about how, and by the way, it wasn't just me. I've heard from other people say, because I talk about Castaway, the Tom Hanks movie Castaway, because I had somebody I knew who took their own life. And it was about, I think it was about a year later, maybe longer than that later, that I saw Castaway. And that whole part at the end, he says, you know, when somebody said, how did you make it? And he says, you know, I just kept telling myself, just keep breathing. Just keep breathing, because tomorrow you never know what the tide is going to bring in. You never know how life is going to change tomorrow. And I remember saying, God, I wish this movie had been out before my friend had taken their life. And then I've heard from other people who have told me, talking about that movie, that really gave them, that there are people in the world who have thought about taking their own life, just thought about ending it, but they saw that movie. And it reminded them that life can change overnight. No matter how dark things look today, tomorrow could be completely different. And if tomorrow's not completely different, the next day could be completely different, because you never know, quoting the movie, what is going to wash up on shore. You never know what the tide's going to bring in. That's just a microcosm, I believe, of how stories and movies can motivate us, because they're not just movies about blowing up aliens. There are also things about us dreaming about what the world is and what the world could be and what we could be. You know, it's all that. And listen, Greg, if a movie like that, and Rocky is great, but if a movie like that can help convince you that if Rocky can do it, I can do it. And then there are other people maybe in their lives who realize they've been a miserable son of a bitch, and then realize, you know what? If Paulie gradually through the Rocky films soften a little bit, I mean, by the end, Paulie was still Paulie. But when we got to Rocky Balboa, like, his relationship with Rocky had evolved, and he had evolved a lot as character. He was still Paulie, but even he had evolved. And maybe other people watch that think, you know what? If Paulie can do it, I can do it. Or people watching Erin Brockovich and think, if that average woman can make a difference, then I can make a difference. And that, Greg, this is one of the reasons why I love messages like this, is because it highlights the fact that these stories we tell can inspire us, they can motivate us, they can convict us, they can do so much. And that's why I think you just highlighted way better than I did, Greg. That's why I really do believe movies matter, and why I think they're so important, and why I think they're so great and what they can do. So, dude, congrats on that. I'm thrilled that a movie like that can motivate you, and that you don't just sit on your ass. So, you know what? I'm getting motivated to do something, and now I'm actually going to take a step and do something about it, and you're doing something about it, and that's inspirational. So thank you for sharing that story with us, Greg. I really appreciate it, man. All right. Next up, Taylor Yeats writes, hey, John, I just wanted to say happy Friday, and happy Friday to you as well, Tyler, and that I appreciate the show. Thank you so much. I look forward to it each day and see what topics will be discussed. Can't wait for Tenet. Dude, by the way, you know, somebody reminded me yesterday, with all the talk about Tenet, we are overlooking another little film coming out, Mulan. I really am excited about Mulan. I thought the trailers were great. I mean, we don't know 100% for sure that Disney's going to keep that 24th release date, but it sounds like they are. We've really been overlooking that one too. But anyway, Tyler, thank you so much for the kind words, and thanks for being here and being part of our community. And yes, I am also very much looking forward to Tenet, my friend. All right, Murray Reich writes, I saw The King of Staten Island, and it was very good. Pete Davidson's performance was amazing. A lot of dark humor, but also filmed with heart through the film. Very inspiring story. Bill Burr and Marissa Tomei performances were very good as well. 8 out of 10. You know what, Murray? Ann and I were supposed to sit down and watch that the other night. I'm going to confess something to you right now. We were supposed to sit down and watch that the other night. But first, you know, I had about an hour to kill before we were going to start watching King of Staten Island, because Anne was doing a meeting of some sorts. And so I got into watching this new Hulu series I talked about the other day. This Hulu series, this new animated Hulu series called Crossing Swords. That's got like Luke Evans is one of the main voices in it. Nicholas Hoult, I think, is one of the main voices in it. The guy who does the voice of Dr. Psycho in Harley Quinn is one of the voices in Crossing Swords. Anyway, it's a very R-rated animated comedy on Hulu, and I couldn't stop watching. I just couldn't stop watching. And so when it came time to watch King of Staten Island, I'm like, no, I'm good. I got to watch the next episode of Crossing Swords. I don't know if any of you guys watch Crossing Swords yet. I'm telling you, this show it's not as good. It's not as funny as Harley Quinn. It's not as funny as Harley Quinn, but it's really funny. It's really funny, really good. And I had no idea. I'd never even heard of this show before I saw it pop up on my Hulu recommended list. I had no idea. It's brand new. It just popped up on my Hulu recommended list. And then I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I did. And I'm so glad that I did. But I still got to get around to watching King of Staten Island. I've heard very, very good things about it, Murray. All right. Thanks for the recommendation, man. Jesse Keller writes, hey, John, I was wandering around the AMC app and I saw Halloween Kills is on the coming soon page and a few other Universal films. Did Universal give into the theater's demands or something? I thought Universal films were banned from theaters. This is the thing, Jesse. This is what I kept trying to tell everybody while all that was going on and nobody listened. AMC never said they were banning, and I said this so many times on the show, AMC never said they were banning all Universal films. What they said was, and what every movie theater chain affirmed, was that if you, Universal, plan on trying to do a day and date release, like you're going to release in theaters and then release it on video on demand on the same day or within a few weeks, we're not going to put your movie in our theaters. That's what AMC said. They did not say we are flat out banning every Universal film. They said, if you have a movie that you think you're going to do day and date release, don't expect to see it on an AMC screen. And then NATO, the movie theater organization, they affirmed the same thing. That we have rules about the theatrical window. And if you think you're going to break those rules and still be on our screens, you got another thing coming. But they never said they were banning all Universal films. Any Universal film that's going to come out and respect the theatrical window, that there's a certain period of time, it's about 12 weeks. There's a certain period of time that if you put your movie in our theaters, you have to not put it out on video on demand or streaming or home entertainment in any way, shape, or form for at least 3 months, 12 weeks, whatever it is. That's the theatrical window. And as long as you respect that, then yeah, your movies can play on our screens. And if you're not going to respect that, then you can find somewhere else to play your movie because it's not going to be in Regal, it's not going to be in AMC, it's not going to be in Cinemark, it's not going to be in any of the major theaters. So that was always the thing. That was always the thing. Just to be clear on that, Jesse. All right, next up. Ron's Decoy Gold writes, Firefly, great story about a group of people just trying to make a life for themselves despite living in the shadow of a useless and oppressive government. The Ron Swanson of sci-fi storytelling. You just crossed swords with two of my favorite things, Firefly and Ron Swanson, maybe the greatest character in television history. Listen. There have been, over the years, so many people talking about going back and doing another Firefly, but it never happens because they know there just wasn't a big enough audience for it, which is really too bad because Firefly was great. The movie Serenity was even better. Serenity was a great opportunity for them to prove that there was a much bigger audience than people thought for Firefly. So they did the movie version, called it Serenity, and nobody went to go see it, which is really too bad because Serenity is awesome. If you know what? And here's the thing. You don't even have to see the Firefly series to be able to watch Serenity. You'll get a deeper appreciation for things that happen in Serenity if you watch Firefly. But Serenity was made so well, you could go in and watch it cold. I know a lot of people who watch Serenity totally cold. Never saw Firefly and loved it. And then they went and watched Firefly and loved it even more. But yeah, man, I miss that stuff. All right. The Wonder One writes, rewatching Avatar, thanks to you. Oh, I'm glad I can influence you, man. Toph is still my favorite. I love the Toph character. I really, really do. I actually wanted Aang and her to end up together. I did not like that Aang and Katara ended up together. There was something just icky about that to me, but whatever. Icky. Did he just really use the word icky? Yes, I did. Anyway, totally should have ended up with Aang instead of Katara. I remember liking Korra too, so rewatching it next, it was a bit more mature. Blood bending, anyone? Bodies have water. Think about it. Yeah, we were just talking about that a little bit too. I liked Avatar so much that I immediately started, as soon as I was done, I immediately started watching Legend of Korra because it's on CBS All Access, and I have CBS All Access. And I only got 3 episodes in, and I gave up on it. I don't know. It just didn't have the same appeal for whatever reason. I don't know. But Maybe I'll give it another shot. I might jump back in and give it another shot at some time. But I'm glad you had it. You decided to go back and rewatch it again. All right, next up, Dave WRO writes, John, love the show. Thank you so much. When Tenet starts showing in theaters, will all formats of the movie going to play? Will all formats of the movie going to play? Formats IMAX and 70 millimeter film, digital prints and 70 millimeter and 35 millimeter print. Yeah, I imagine they will be. I mean, I don't know that 100% for sure, but knowing that Christopher Nolan has desperately been championing the idea of getting this movie in theaters, and knowing how much he loves the 70 millimeter format, I gotta believe, yeah, everything that you expect to see in the movie theater, all the different options, regular 2D, 3D. I mean, I don't know if Tenet's in 3D or not, but Prime, what's the word I'm looking for? Dolby Cinemas, 4DX or whatever it's called. I expect that you're going to see all those formats in play. And so, yes, I do expect that if you live close to one of those 70 millimeter projection IMAX screens, you'll probably see Tenet there. Again, I don't know that 100% for sure, but that is my expectation at this point, Dave. Very excited about watching that on the big screen. All right, Joshua Stevens writes, Strange says he monitors Earth. He monitors threats to Earth. Yet when Banner lands in Infinity War and says Thanos is coming, he replies with, "Who? He has never heard of Thanos." Well, I mean, look, if you want to get into real nitpicky logic on Endgame and Infinity War, there are a million logic holes. There are a million logic holes in all those things. But I mean, if Thanos hasn't come to Earth, then listen, Doctor Strange isn't aware of every single alien species and being that's out there, right? Thanos had never come to Earth, I don't think. I don't think the movie suggested he ever came to Earth. So Thanos had never come to Earth. When Loki came to Earth, well, then it became a problem. And remember, the Asgardians had been to Earth many, many times. If you watch the original Thor movie, the Asgardians had a very real presence on Earth prior to that, right? So if you want to look for a technical excuse for that, there's your technical excuse. But again, don't go too down the rabbit hole of trying to connect everything logically in the MCU, because that's not their primary concern. But it's a good observation, Joshua. All right, Anthony writes, "Hello, John. Did you check out the Candyman short video with the puppets Nia DaCosta posted on her Twitter?" No, I did not. I have not had a chance to see that. There's symbolisms in that video that people probably didn't catch, but if you do your history, you know what they meant. Please check it out. Again, I haven't had a chance to check it out. Maybe at some point I'll get a chance to stumble across it and take a look at it, but I have not done so as of yet. Just to be honest with you, I haven't. But I'm sure a lot of people are checking it out right now, even as we speak, just because you posted that, Anthony. So well done. All right. Hitchcock is the GOAT writes, it's hard to argue that. If Paramount focused on creating something that was actually successful, other than Mission Impossible, then maybe they wouldn't have time to harass you. I started with Android and switched to iPhone because I felt it was simpler. Why the reverse for you? Well, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I am very platform agnostic. Like, my main desktop computer is a PC. It's not an Apple. But for a very long time, my main desktop computer was an Apple, was a Mac. I currently have an iPad Pro, and I love it deeply. I love my iPad Pro. But my phone is an Android, even though I used to use iPhone. So why did I ultimately choose to ditch iPhone for Android? Couple of reasons. One, I like the fact that it wasn't such a closed, locked ecosystem like Apple's ecosystem is. There are benefits to that. But I just found, it just worked better. Also, I found a lot of the hardware. Now remember, there are many manufacturers of Android devices. There's only one manufacturer of Apple devices, and that's Apple. Whereas there's like 50 companies that can make Android phones. So I certainly can't speak for all of them. But I found with a lot of the people who made Android phones, the hardware was simply superior. I just found that the hardware was superior in a lot of the phones. I also liked the ability to customize your Android experience, as opposed to, like, Apple was very, very locked. You couldn't really customize much. And with like Android, especially at the time, I was like, I can put in all these different widgets all over the place. All my screens can be all this different stuff. I can do whatever I want with this. With the iPhone, I couldn't do that. Now, slowly but surely, Apple has been adopting a lot of Android features into their iOS. So that's good. But then what keeps me on Android? Well, I mean, I did a bunch of camera tests and stuff like that. To me, one of the biggest deals for a phone right now is camera. And like the Samsung cameras are just better, in my opinion. In my opinion, and you know, it's all about your own individual eye test. But to me, the Samsung cameras are better. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. But listen, that's not to say that I am a hardcore Android acolyte. You know, all my tablets had been Android tablets, and then the 2018 iPad Pro came out. And that was a game changer. I'm like, yep, I'm putting my Android tablet down, and I'm picking up a iPad Pro, and I love it. And if iPhone can come out with something that is truly better than the Samsung or the Google Pixel offerings, guess what? All I want is the best device I can have. Right now, I feel the best device is my Samsung when it comes to my phone. So, and by the way, if a new Apple PC comes out that for a reasonable price point can exceed the performance of my desktop PC, guess what? I'm switching back to a Mac. I am not an acolyte of either corporate overlord. I will just use, because I've got an MacBook right over there. I got a PC right here. I got an Android phone, and I got an Apple tablet, right? So I just want the best product. And if next year all the best stuff is Apple, then all my stuff's going to be Apple, if I can afford it. And if the year after that, all the best stuff is either PC or Android-based stuff, then I'm going to have all PC and Android-based stuff. But anyway, those are the reasons that I made the switch from iPhone to Android and why I have not switched back so far. Let's see what the iPhone 12 does. All right, moving on here. The Sock writes, I've been binging What We Do in the Shadows. God, I love that show. Jackie Daytona. Anyway, and I am loving it. One thing that's been bugging me, though, is why don't familiars write a contract and find someone to make it magically binding so their masters have to turn them eventually? Well, I mean, there's a couple of big problems with that. One, how can familiars just find somebody who can do a magic contract? They've never said in What We Do in the Shadows that that's a thing. Second, you are a slave to your master, right? In the vampire familiar mythology, you're a slave to your master. Your master is not going to be, you're a vampire, right? You are a slave to your vampire. That's what you are as a familiar. And the vampires are they don't have to sign any contracts. Like, oh, you don't want to be a bye. I'm going to kill you now. I'm going to rip out your throat. So yeah, that's probably why. But listen, guys, if you have not been watching What We Do in the Shadows, they just finished season 2, which I thought was even better than season 1. You got to get on that show. This show is so good. I laugh my guts out almost every single episode. Extract the semen. I mean, it's every moment, like every scene has something that I laugh out loud at. I just love the show. So if you get a chance, take Sock's advice and go and check it out. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, things are looking good right now for us movie-going fans. July is all set now with Regal and AMC and Cinemark set to open. This is amazing news, as I'm sure it gives studios peace of mind as well that they can release movies as scheduled. Here's hoping. Here's hoping. Again, I am still concerned that we're not seeing masks being required. That concerns me. But again, like I said, when I'm in a restaurant and we don't have masks on, but we're 6 feet apart, I feel perfectly fine. Why don't I feel that way? Again, I'm still working that out. But I don't think anybody feels complete peace of mind yet. Right? I think as long as the coronavirus thing is out there, nobody's feeling peace of mind. It is looking more and more assured, but don't take it to the bank just yet. But I am excited for the movie industry to open back up again. I am. So I'm sure a lot of us are. Here's hoping, man. Fingers crossed, Russell. Fingers crossed. All right. Jordan Genovese writes, Hey, John, back at it again with another tech question. No problem. Once you play the intro song, which I love, by the way, what's the name of the song? I actually don't know what the name of the piece of music. I licensed the music. I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyway, how can you tell when it's your cue in the song to start? And how do you fade it out not to overlap you talking? Well, what I do is simply this. So listen, let's cut to this for a second. So here we go. Hold on a second. We'll cut to this for a moment. Why am I not getting this to play? Hold on a second. Let me try this again. There we go. Okay, you hear it, right? Now there's a piece in the music. Right here it goes. That's when I know it's time for me to start talking. So the way I know is because I can actually hear it, right? So I have monitors on that I can actually hear the music playing. How do I get it to fade out? Well, it's simple. I made that intro clip and then I made it fade out. So as soon as I know when it hits that, as soon as it hits that part, that's when the fade starts. And I know that once it hits that big crescendo, that's when I start talking. And that's when I bring up my picture. And that's when the music and everything I already have set and programmed to fade out. So it's all preset and all pre-programmed. So I hope that answers your question for you. A little bit of behind the scenes stuff there. All right. Thanks for asking, Jordan. Ask all the technical questions I actually get a kick out of answer. I'm a tech head. I love my tech gear. I am a massive tech gear fanatic. You know, if I wasn't doing movie stuff, I would be a sports commentator for sure. I would be doing basically the same sort of thing, but I'd be doing it about sports. And if I wasn't doing that, I would probably be a total tech guy. I'd be talking about cameras and gadgets and phones and computers, and that's what I would probably be doing. So I kind of get a kick out of it, Jordan, when you do ask tech questions. All right, James L.H. writes, John, just wanted to say RIP to the great Sir Ian Holm, a great actor, had a long association with Lord of the Rings, playing Frodo on the BBC Radio 1981 to Bilbo in the recent films, plus many more great stage and screen performances. Well done, sir. Indeed. Well done indeed. A BAFTA Award winner, Academy Award nominated actor in more of your iconic, Alien, by the way. We didn't even mention Alien earlier. You know, he was in Alien. Just a truly fabulous career. And if I'm right, and the last stuff he did was the Lord of the Rings stuff and the Hobbit stuff, what a great cap. What a great way to cap your career in a franchise that is among the most iconic film franchises ever, the Lord of the Rings franchise. I mean, it's such a great thing to do. And again, it is a loss. It is a definite loss, James LH. Thanks for that shout out. All right, the Joe D writes, please help. Last week, my wife and I watched Artemis Fowl, and she liked it. Again, I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know if I'll like it too. Maybe I will, but I'm hearing terrible things about it. She liked it, and I didn't. Last night, we watched The Kids Are All Right. She hated it. What did I do wrong? Oh, dude, I love The Kids Are All Right. Hold on a second. Who directed that? I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. Wait a sec. It says there's a 2019. Why am I getting the wrong one? Because the one I'm thinking about should be around 2009. There it is, 2010. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. It was not the director I was expecting. So it was directed by a director named Lisa Cholodenko. I think that's her name. Anyway, Annette Bening, Mark Ruffalo, Julianne Moore. This movie is great. It's the movie for me. I mean, Mark Ruffalo had been around a long time, and obviously Annette Bening and Julianne Moore. And let me bring this up here, actually. I really adore this movie. I think it is a great combination of great life questions and drama, but also it's got some lightheartedness to it. It's got multi-dimensional characters who are not perfect. I think it's wonderful. And I know it got some Oscar love too. Hold on, let me look it up. It got 4 Oscar nominations. Let me bring those up. So it got nominated for Best Picture of the Year. Annette Bening got nominated for Best Actress. Mark Ruffalo got nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and it got nominated for Best Screenplay. Didn't win any of the awards, but it got a lot of nominations. But listen, again, the Joe D, all film is subjective, brother. All film is subjective. And just because your wife watched it and it didn't click for her, that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. No reason to panic. Now, if you show her Star Wars for the first time and she doesn't appreciate those, you might have to question your life decisions. But as far as every other movie goes, even Star Wars, you got to see, films are a thing. But I love that movie. I really, really do. I'm glad you brought it up. I actually, we don't bring up that movie enough. That's a really good one. Anyway, Garrett Couch writes, warning. I finally got my ticket to transfer my songs from Google Play to YouTube Music. All your songs, my SS. Oh, my ass. In 2020, we can privatize spaceflight, but transferring songs from one platform to another is still like saving people on the Titanic. Lame. You know what? And I haven't had to go through that yet. Because for years, my personal, some people use Spotify, some people use Apple Music, whatever. My music choice that I've been subscribed to has been Google Play Music. And they are shutting Google Play Music down. Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to transfer everything over to YouTube Music. They haven't given me my ticket to do that yet, so I'm still using Google Play Music right now. And Anne, my wife, got the invite to make the transfer, and she made the transfer, and for her, it was pretty painless, actually. Her transfer was pretty smooth. But I'm hearing from other people, Garrett, that it's not been so smooth for some people. And now from you. So, like, Anne's experience was perfectly easy. Click, 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 all done. She's all good. I'm hoping my experience will be as easy as hers. But I have been hearing from some people that they're not having as easy of a time. And it may take them a little bit of time to get it worked out. So I got to go through it myself too here pretty soon, Garrett. I got to go through it here pretty soon myself. And I'm a little bit nervous about it because of people I've been hearing like you talking about. But again, my wife's experience was really easy. And it should, I mean, in theory, it should be easy, right? From the back end, it should be nothing but a bunch of zeros and ones metadata, right? And then to take that and transfer it from one platform into another shouldn't be that difficult. It shouldn't be that difficult. So I hope whatever issues you've had with it, Garrett, I hope whatever issues you've had get worked out. I really do. I hope my transfer experience is going to be more like Anne's transfer experience and less like yours. Sorry, buddy, but I hope I have it easier than you. But you know, we'll see how it goes. So I hope you were able to get that all fixed up, Garrett. I really do. And technology, ladies and gentlemen, technology. I mean, it is our best friend and it is our worst enemy all at the same time. It is crazy. But anyway, I hope you're able to get that figured out, Garrett. All right, next up, Lone Star writes, hey, John, fairly new to your channel. Thank you so much. Only joined at the end of last year, so I'm a bit confused. Whatever happened to Ashley? Okay, we've only answered that about 500 times, but I'll answer it again. Whatever happened to Ashley's show, and why have no episodes of the podcast been on Spotify since May 4th? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, with Ashley, she simply, I mean, she is an actress and a model, and her schedule simply started getting too busy to be able to work with our schedule here on the show. So you should follow her on Instagram, by the way. She's great. I love Ashley. She's wonderful. You should go follow her there. Anyway, beyond that, yeah, I became aware a little while ago of an issue on Spotify where actually the John Campea Show is on twice. It's listed as two different podcasts. One has an old RSS feed that has not updated since May 4th. The other has the new one. But whenever you search for the John Campea Show, a lot of people only come up with the old one. I am working with my podcasting host right now to get this resolved. Like, because everybody else, whether you're on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or whatever, everybody else is getting it fine. But I have been having a lot of people who use Spotify have been having that image, and we identified the problem. So my podcast hosting service is looking into it, and we'll get that all straightened out. In the meantime, see if you can find the other one. But hopefully we're going to be able to get Spotify just to merge those into one and update the RSS feed so people who are subscribed to it will get the new stuff. Because there is an audio-only version of the John Campea Show, the podcast form, which you can go and find on your podcasting app of choice. Just search for the John Campea Show and you should be able to find it. Anyway, hope that clears up that issue for you, Anonymous. All right, Fabian Vegas writes, John, Barbara Muschietti, sister of Andy Muschietti, the director of The Flash, supposedly, just responded to a question on her Instagram saying that Ray Fisher will reprise his role as Victor Stone, Cyborg, and Flash. Thoughts? I heard that she said that, but I have not gone and read her comments myself personally. Again, I don't even fully believe that that movie's going to happen. I don't care what they say. That movie was supposed to come out years ago. And then it was supposed to start shooting in 6 months. Then it got delayed. Then it got delayed again. Then it got delayed again. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I'm not convinced it's going to happen. But anyway, I can't really comment too much on it since I have not read. Listen, I really like Ray Fisher. You know, I got a chance to watch some of his stage stuff. He's incredible. He's a really good actor. So I'd be down for it. But again, I don't even know that I believe that this movie's going to happen regardless of what they say, because they keep talking and saying things are going to happen and then they don't. So we'll see. We'll see. But again, I can't give too many thoughts on it until I read her actual comments to see, you know, what details are in there. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Purred Happily, which is a play on what you heard with Purred. Purred, hi, I'm Purred Happily. And here's the thing about this tip. It's for you. Actually, Purred, I was so happy when Purred is a Parks and Rec character. He's a side Parks and Rec character. And have you heard with Purred? And he's hilarious. We will now start the show, which is the first topic, which we will start with now. He's hilarious. I was so happy when they did the Parks and Rec reunion show that they just did about a month ago, which was so good, by the way. If you haven't watched it, you should go watch it. They did a 1-episode Parks and Rec reunion episode. And I was so happy to see that Purred was a part of it. And he did all of his Purdisms. I love that. So thanks for sharing that, man. You just put a smile on my face. All right. Next up, I have the high ground rights. Hey, John, I've been worried if it's a good idea to go back to the cinema just yet, but here in the UK, Cineworld is going to be showing Empire Strikes Back. Oh, I know. I heard about that. So that answers that. Yes, it's safe. Yep. And listen, they are taking a lot of steps. Look, the reality is right now, you cannot walk outside of your door and be guaranteed, unless you're putting on a hazmat suit, you cannot step outside your door and be guaranteed that you're not going to catch COVID. But there are things you can do to minimize the risk that you get it. And it sounds like places like Cineworld are doing a lot of the things to make it as safe of an environment as possible. But even then, you can take steps, right? Make sure, like, wear gloves if that makes you feel more comfortable. Make sure you keep that social distance from the people you're going with. Have your own set of hand sanitizer in your pocket. You know, if your hands are on the railings of your chair, they did disinfect the theaters, but still, if you have your hands on the rails, don't touch your face until you have a chance to either wash your hands or hand sanitizer. There are things you can do to do that. And going to see Empire Strikes Back on the big screen again, that sounds like a good excuse to go out and do that. That would be pretty attractive, man. So listen, be safe, be smart. Again, there are a lot of things. Listen, I've been saying for a long time, the thing about the movie industry or about life in general and the COVID-19 thing is not that we sit around and wait for COVID to disappear, but that we learn to adapt our behavior to deal with it, to minimize our risks. STDs are still out there, but guess what? You can still have sex and minimize your risk. Whether it's the use of condoms or whether it's, making sure you only have one partner, or where's the fun in that? No, making sure you only have one partner or whatever. There are things you can do to minimize your risk. STDs are still out there, but you can go out and have sex and probably not catch any STDs if you are smart. And that's how I feel about going outside with that. So, and Empire Strikes Back is as good of a reason as any to go and do that. All right. Monkey of all DJs writes, hey kids, been following since the AMC days. Thank you so much for that, man. RIP to Bilbo and Ash from Alien. Off topic, but do you think there will be a Winnipeg versus Toronto Stanley Cup Finals this year? I don't. But what a great thing it would be to have an all-Canada Stanley Cup Final. How great would that be? I honestly can't remember the last time it happened. It's been decades. It's been decades. How many decades, I'm not sure. But I honestly can't tell you the last time it's been an all-Canadian Stanley Cup Final. I think Toronto's got a good shot, but I don't see them getting to the final. But if they do, you're going to see a John Campea wetting himself all over the place. So no, I don't think it will happen, but how great would it be if it did? By the way, it's great to see hockey back in Winnipeg. I know it's already been a few years, but it's great seeing hockey back in Winnipeg. All right, T-Man writes, hey John, long-time viewer, first-time message. Thanks for being around for so long, T-Man. I appreciate that. I suffer from depression and severe loneliness. Hey man, you're not alone. A lot of people do. This year has been particularly difficult, obviously, with all the isolation and everything going on. I write stories, read books, and watch movies to fill my time. You and the show have helped me with your shared interests in storytelling, movie talk, recommending classic films, and Zevia. Zevia, sponsor me, you sons of bitches. Zevia, sponsor Campea Zevia. I look forward to joining the discussion and the community. There was a superhero TV show where the actor of the title character was recast, 1988 Superboy. Somebody else brought that up. Apparently, like, all the cast got replaced on that or something, and if I heard right. 1988 Superboy lasted 4 seasons. Superboy / Clark Kent was played by Jonathan Hames Newton in season 1 and was replaced in the role by Gerard Christopher in season 2. The producers were not pleased with Newton. The show was popular and never missed a beat with the recasting. Most folks preferred Christopher in the role. He was the better actor. Like you, I'm a big Superman fan. Did you watch this show? I never did watch that show, T-Man. And first of all, by the way, I'm thrilled, like, as somebody who does deal with depression, I am thrilled that you do things to keep yourself engaged, and that's awesome. And I'm super honored that the John Campea Show and our whole online movie community is one of those tools that is able to help you with that. So that's awesome, and thank you for sharing that, because here's the important thing about you sharing that too, is that there are other people. One of the things that I hear a lot is that a lot of people who suffer with depression often talk about they feel very, very isolated and feel like they're alone. I think the more that people, and I'm no mental health expert, let's be very clear about that, but it feels like to me that the more that people share their struggles, I think you probably just inspired somebody else. Like there's probably somebody else watching the show right now that also deals with clinical depression, who's probably feels a little better knowing that they're not alone, knowing that there's other movie fans, movie psychotics out there who also deal with it. And I think that's important. So bravo, thank you to you for sharing that. As far as that Superboy show goes, I never saw an episode. I never saw a single episode of it. So no, I never did watch it. But so where this is all coming from, for those of you wondering what T-Man was talking about, was that with Ruby Rose leaving Batwoman, I said, I don't know if I can ever remember a time that the title character of a show, the actor playing the title character of the show, left after the first season and somebody else came in and the show went on to be successful. Superboy is a great example of that, because it was the title character and it went on to have multiple seasons. So that is a great example of that. That is a terrific example of that. All right. My Tamorph writes, why are cinemas opening in the U.S.? We in Germany handled COVID way better than the U.S. You guys did. You kicked its ass. You, New Zealand, a number of places kicked its ass. Australia. We in Germany handled COVID way better than the U.S., and our cinemas are still closed. Isn't it irresponsible to open the cinemas now that numbers are going up in the U.S. again? Listen, that's the big... Here's the thing. To me, again, it is not about waiting for COVID to disappear. It's about doing the smart things. The thing that concerns me is that people do not conduct themselves in a responsible way. And it's about personal responsibility. You remember earlier in the show, I gave the example of seatbelts, right? There is a law that says if you're going to drive in a car, you have to be wearing a seatbelt. I don't hear people crying in the streets, you're trampling on my freedoms. No, because we know it's common sense. But here's the thing. Wearing a seatbelt is about self-preservation. Doing smart things out in public, like wearing a mask, is about protecting other people around you. I think you can open businesses like theaters. And again, I am no health expert. Let's be clear about that. I am no health expert. It just seems to me that if everybody acts responsibly, you can open these places and manage these things. The problem is we can keep those businesses closed and still act irresponsibly, and we're still going to see the numbers spike. It's about individuals taking responsibility and doing the responsible thing. Too many people have made it a political issue. What the hell is political? There's nothing political about putting on a seatbelt. It's just common sense. But it seems like in our culture, a lot of people have decided to wait to doing a common sense, responsible thing, like a little thing like wearing a mask when you go out and going to be in public spaces. They've decided to politicize it and now make it a political thing. You're trampling on my freedoms. I just don't understand. I just don't understand that. But as long as people aren't taking responsibility, keeping businesses closed isn't going to help. People taking responsibility, I think you can open businesses again and do well. But I don't know. It's let's put it this way. It is a problem whose answer is way beyond my pay grade. It is a problem whose answer is well beyond my pay grade. And I acknowledge that. It's a much more complex situation than even I probably realize, but yeah, man, it's a tricky subject. It's a tricky subject. It just is, man. But everything you said, I don't disagree with anything you said, man. You raised some great points. All right, let's see. Next up, anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. Not to get political, but lots of Americans think seatbelts are a freedom issue. I'm about 40, and most of my friends' parents refuse them because of freedom. I'm hopeful that theater goers will mask up because I'll be there." Look, I'm not saying that there's nobody out there who doesn't consider seatbelts a political issue, but the vast majority of people, whatever their political leanings are, all think seatbelts are a good idea. I'm sure maybe at some point it was a little bit of a question mark, and there are some people like, whenever you introduce something new, it's always going to meet with resistance, right? So I'm sure when seatbelts became a law, which is before my time, but I'm sure that there were people who were like, no, you can't make me wear a seatbelt. But today we all know, oh yeah, that's pretty common sense. That's common sense. At least the vast majority of people know that that's common sense. But you're right, man. Whenever there's something new comes along, it's like, wait a minute, we haven't had to wear a mask before, and you're asking us to wear a mask now? Trampling my freedom. Whatever. There's just no talking to some people. I don't understand how it's not just understood as a common sense thing, but you do raise a point. Whenever there's something new, we resist it. I think I'm guilty of that. I think we're all probably guilty of that to some degree or another, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, Dan Thomas writes, "Hey, John, I wanted to get your thoughts on the new Green Lantern series coming sometime next year. It's hard to give thoughts on something that we know nothing about right now. Anyway, what are your expectations for the show, and which Lantern do you think that we'll be getting? Thanks." I have no expectations for the show. I have none. There are so many different things that you could do. For instance, if you ask me what my expectations were for a Flash show, the Flash show we got is very, very different from what I was kind of expecting we would get. And by the way, I really like the Flash. I thought that show was a bad idea, but I really like it. So with Green Lantern, it's hard to say. I wouldn't have thought Black Lightning would be the show that it is, and I really like Black Lightning too. I wouldn't have thought Arrow was going to be the show that it was going to be. So with Greg Berlanti being involved, I honestly have no idea what they're going to do. I really don't. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't. Which Lantern will they use? I'm going to go out on a limb and guess they're going to do Stewart. I'm going to guess that they're going to do Stewart. Now, my preference is always Hal Jordan, because to me, Hal Jordan is the definitive Green Lantern. But there's a younger generation that they grew up with Stewart. And so there's a good argument to be made there for Stewart. I don't expect you'll see any of the others, at least not as the leads. I don't think we're going to have a Kyle Rayner lead Green Lantern show. I don't think we're going to have a Guy Gardner lead Green Lantern show. They may pop up as auxiliary characters, they may, but I think the biggest odds-on favorites right now are Hal Jordan or Stewart, but I'm gonna guess it'll be John Stewart. That's gonna be my guess. Yeah, that's gonna be my guess. So we'll see. All right, next up, Tom writes, "Is it not a bit odd that Jamie Foxx would be playing, presumably, a young Mike Tyson, despite the fact that he's in his 50s and only a year younger than Tyson in real life?" Is he really? I remember I was thinking about that myself, that he's not that much younger than Tyson. I didn't realize he was only like 1 year younger, though. I didn't realize that. Hold on a second, let me ask you. Hey, Google, how old is Jamie Foxx? Just see how old. So Jamie Foxx is 52. I didn't realize. I thought he was like in his mid-40s for whatever. Jamie Foxx is awesome. Yeah. Listen, clearly they'll figure out a way to do it, though. They'll do a lot with makeup and things. Look, first of all, Jamie Foxx, when he wants to look younger, he can look pretty young. Jamie Foxx can look pretty young. So you just do the right makeup. I don't even think they have to do anything digital to him. I just think they have to do the right makeup job, and I think they'll be able to pull it off. But you're right. It is kind of funny that you're getting a guy who's really not much younger than Mike Tyson playing a younger version of Mike Tyson. But I think Jamie Foxx is one of those guys that'll be able to pull it off with. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But you're not wrong, Tom. You're not wrong. All right. Simon Blakemore writes, John, I finished The Legend of Korra and found it good. I thought it was really good. It took some getting used to because it was different to Avatar, especially Book 2, Spirits, because you find out about the spirit world and how the first Avatar came to be. I don't know if you're going to try Korra again, but you might find it interesting how the first Avatars came to be. Yeah, I've had a few. It's been funny. Ever since I brought up the fact that I finished Last Airbender, which I really enjoyed, and I only got a few episodes into Korra and gave up. I've had a number of people write to me saying, yeah, you don't need to watch Legend of Korra. But I've also had other people say, you know what, John, yeah, the first season of Korra is a little shaky, but there's a lot of good stuff in it if you can get through that and get past that. So I'm on the fence right now, Simon. I'm on the fence right now about going back and investing more time because there's so much stuff I still have to watch that do I want to go back and invest my time and take away time from other things for a show I already gave a chance to and didn't like. So I'm still a torn. I might. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I might, because some people like you are writing in saying, John, yeah, first season's a little rough, but they do some really cool stuff later on as you get into it. What I'm really interested in is I've heard some people write to me and say there are flashbacks in the show of adult Aang. That's interesting to me. I'd be curious to see that, like episodes that are flashbacks showing an adult Aang. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, I don't know. I might. I never know, but I might. And if I do, Simon, it'll be because you and people like you have been telling me that maybe I should give it another chance. All right, next up, Anthony Campos writes, COVID is still going to be a problem even when studios start filming again. Do you think this will change the way scripts are already written or change certain scenes when it comes to actors having to hold hands or kiss, hug? How do they work around that? Thanks. Again, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show, Anthony. Listen, just look at the UFC. The UFC has two people getting into a ring and grappling and wrestling and punching each other in the face and all that kind of stuff. They have protocols. They test the athletes, quarantine them, test them again, make 100% sure they're clean, make sure they're on a controlled set, and then you can bring in all these actors because now all the actors know, hey, everybody on this set, we've all been tested. We've all been tested. And we've all been in quarantine for a few days. And we got tested again. And we are confident that everybody here is safe. Warner Brothers is spending $5 million on their safety protocols for Jurassic World Dominion starting up its production again. So again, it's just like the UFC system. And the UFC system has worked. They've done like 5 events now, and nobody's caught COVID. Nobody's caught it because they have strict guidelines, strict testing, strict protocols that they follow, and they're able to put on UFC events, and not one person has caught COVID from doing it. It's pretty good. It's a system that works. And if studios will be as committed to it as Warner Brothers seems to be, like putting up like $6 million or $5 million, I think they're going to be able to do it. So no, I don't think it's going to change the way people write scripts. I don't think it's going to change the way people make movies, other than the fact that for a while we're going to see these increased safety protocols in place. And I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. The UFC has already proved it can be fine. It really has. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Anthony. Honest Asian Guy writes, today's recommendation, 1988's, I don't know how to pronounce it, Zuzu, the Sent Down Girl. Set during China's Cultural Revolution. Is it Zuzu? Anyway, Zuzu and millions of other youths are sent down to remote parts of the country to participate in various means of physical labor, directed by Joan Chen. I have not heard of this, but hold on a second. I want to look it up here quick. Let's see. XIU. So, here it is. 1998, Zuzu, the Sent Down Girl. Let's bring this up here so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Not the poster I was looking for. Sounds a little Hunger Game-ish in a way. A young teen girl, Zuzu, is sent away to a remote corner of the Shushan Steppes for manual labor in 1975. Sending young people there was a part of the Cultural China Revolution. A year later, she agrees to go on even more remote spot with Tibetan saddle tramp Lao Jin to learn horse riding. I have never heard of this film, but it sounds kind of fascinating. Thank you for putting it on the radar. And now there's probably a lot of people watching the show who are going to go and check that out themselves, Honest Asian Guy. All right, Casey Sledge Storyteller writes, hey, John, as many have already as many have already, I want to acknowledge your inspiration to get up and do it. My it was to self-publish the comic series and get it out, as well as hold my own channel. It's a slow start, but I am glad to say I have started. That is awesome, man. Listen, so many people keep saying, oh, I want to write a book, or I want to draw comics, or I want to make a short film, or I want to do this, or I want to become an architect, or I want to do whatever. But nobody does anything. Too many people in our culture just sit on their ass like entitled little jerks and just think that, oh, I have a dream, so what I have to do is just sit here and wait for somebody to come along and hand it to me, instead of actually getting up and doing something about it. I keep telling people all the time, whatever walk of life you're in, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, do something every day, no matter how small it is. Do something every day that gets you 1 inch closer. It doesn't have to be a mile closer. Do something every day that gets you a little bit closer to your goals. And I have so admired a lot of people writing in that during the lockdown, especially, that, you know what? I've had people write and say, I've always wanted to write a book. So you know what? Damn it. I'm actually going to start writing. That's the best thing to do. Just start writing. You know what? I really want to learn how to be a pilot. I'm going to start researching stuff more. Great. Research stuff more. You know what? I really wanted to accomplish this. So I started writing emails to these key people. You know what? Writing emails. That's one step. Just do things that get you closer to your goals. So good on you, KC Sledge, for doing that. And I hope it works out for you really well. And you know what? And even if it doesn't work out, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, though? I did things to work towards my goals. Maybe it didn't work, but I actually got off my ass and I worked for it, and I tried and I put in the effort. And you can always look at yourself in the mirror and be at peace with that. And that's awesome. So good on you, man. All right. James Welsh writes, what would you have done in Stallone's shoes? Taking the money for the Rocky script because you're penniless and it's the 1970s, $250,000 is a lot of money, or do what he did, take a huge risk, star in it for next to nothing. It could fail. Well, remember, scale wasn't next to nothing, though. It's not like he was guaranteed nothing. He was he was in a position where he had nothing. He was going to get, he was guaranteed at least a certain amount of stuff that he would get, right? Even to scale. There was at least some guarantee of money that we'd have, which was way more than he already had. I liked his spot on that. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you how. I've alluded to this story before, but I'll give you a little bit more detail right now. I was in a position, I gotta be careful what I can and cannot say. I was in a spot where I was developing a show with other people, and we were given the opportunity to sell that show for X amount of dollars. And it wasn't a bad amount of money. The problem was we would have been surrendering all creative rights, all future rights, all that kind of stuff. Basically, it wouldn't have been ours anymore. And our belief at the time was, for the amount of energy and effort we're going to be putting into creating this, if we take that next step, we want to have a vested interest in the show. And we want to be able to keep a certain degree of ownership, not all of it, but a certain degree of ownership, and be in a position where we will continue to reap the benefits if it's successful. And if it's not successful, maybe that means we get less money than we would have if we just took an upfront deal. But, you know, we feel for the amount of work we're putting into it, we want to be in a position that we could get a larger payoff and really reap the fruits of our success if it succeeds. And made the hard decision to turn it down. The people putting up the money was not willing to give us that kind of vested interest. So we said, thank you, but no thank you. And I've never regretted that decision. Now, the show never did happen, and that's fine. But I've never regretted that decision because, honestly, the amount of work and commitment it was going to take to do that show, I honestly felt like we need to put ourselves in a position where if the show succeeds, we reap benefits of that success. And the whole team did as well. And so we walked away from it. So I can tell you what I have done in a situation like that, which is taking the same approaches. Now, Sylvester Stallone's situation worked out much better for him, but we did, and I don't regret it. Anyway, Ben Rayner writes, Hey, John, I am starting to worry about the Snyder Cut, not because the quality of the movie, it could go either way, but the amount of Darkseid in the movie. I think getting the feeling from YouTubers that they think Darkseid will be the main villain. Oh yeah, I know. That's completely out there and they're crazy. Darkseid is not, listen, the Snyder Cut is going to be what Snyder's original vision for the movie was. Snyder's original vision was always that Steppenwolf is the main villain and you will get teased with Darkseid in a couple of spots in the movie. That was always Zack Snyder's original vision. He said that. Deborah Snyder has affirmed that. There are a bunch of people out there who are running wild with this notion that Darkseid's going to be the main villain and we're going to get like 45 minutes of Darkseid in the movie and it's going to be all Darkseid. No, it's not. Because that was never Zack Snyder's movie. That was never what he planned. That's not what he shot. And everybody forgets that. Now, clearly, you're going to get more Darkseid than we got in the theatrical version. Anything is more. And I think we're going to get more than just what we saw in the teaser, but not much more. Not much more. Snyder always said that Darkseid in his Justice League was more of a tease to set up what would come in another movie. So you're right. There are a bunch of people out there who are under this really weird impression that Darkseid is suddenly now going to be the main villain of the movie. And that's completely contrary to what Zack Snyder said. And I don't know. I think they're setting themselves up for disappointment. I think it's going to be some really cool footage. It's going to be very short. Barely a little bit more than a tease. But I think it's going to be very cool. But I think some people are setting themselves up for disappointment, thinking that magically now Darkseid's the main villain of the film and Steppenwolf wasn't. And it's like, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man. But you're right. I think a lot of people are setting themselves up for disappointment. All right. Preston Bell writes, just heard about the passing of Sir Ian Holm, Bilbo Baggins, Ash from Alien, and Andrew's dad from Garden. That's right. He was in Garden State too. Sad news. I guess he's already on his next adventure. Wink, wink. Yeah. I mean, it really is a sad thing. And we talked about that off the top of the show about the passing of Ian Holm, an Academy Award winning. What a career he had. And what a way to finish. If I'm correct. And the final thing he did was like the Hobbit stuff, that he capped off his career with one of the most celebrated film franchises of all time in The Lord of the Rings. And yeah, it is truly awesome. It is a loss that we're not going to see him on screen again. It really, really is. But a life well lived, as Robert Meyer Burnett would say. Steve Irby just sends in a $5 tip. Thank you, Steve, just for supporting the channel on that level. Appreciate that, man. Jaron Morris writes, so 1 hour into Last of Us Part 2, I had to put it down. Wasn't bad, just wasn't punched in the face, kicked in the balls, and had my soul bathed in a hot pot filled of my own tears. Talk about an emotional roller coaster. You're going to do a review of it. Please, God, do. Let me read that again. So 1 hour into Last of Us Part 2, I had to put it down. Wasn't bad. Just was punched, not wasn't, just was punched in the face, kicked in the balls, and had my soul bathed in a hot pile filled of my tears. Talk about an emotional roller coaster. Are you going to do a review of it? Please do. You know what? I think I am going to get it today. And I do think I will review my experiences with it. Now it's tough because I'm no good at console games. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. I cannot use a controller, a console controller. I have to have a mouse and keyboard, but I am going to go and get it today. I got my PS4 Pro all set up. I'm going to download it. I'm going to play a bit of it and but I'm hearing it is every critic and reviewer saying this whole game is such an emotional roller coaster. It is such an emotional roller coaster. All right. Last couple of questions here, guys. John McKinney writes, one of two. You and I both know that art is subjective. Should people go to college if they are into film? Most, but not all, try to tell you the movies are objective. No, they don't. And brainwash students into thinking that. Jobs like being a blogger/vlogger, film critic, filmmaker, and artist, as far as I know, don't require a degree. If college professors are trying to brainwash them into thinking that movies are not subjective, they shouldn't go, and I think it's dangerous. No, listen, I know a lot of instructors in various film degrees and film colleges. They don't think art is objective. At least none of the ones that I know think art is subjective or think art is objective. They all know art is subjective. Now, that being said, there are objective things you can do. Like, I'm just using this as an example. How to properly focus a camera. That's an objective thing, right? Achieving color balance. That's an objective thing. setting up a proper 3-act structure, if that's what you're going for in your movie, but setting up a proper 3-act structure. There is an objective way to do that. Now, whether it turns out good or not, that's the subjective part of it. But there's a lot of things that go into it that is objectively right or wrong. Spelling somebody's name correctly in the credits. That's an objective thing, even though it's part of a movie, which is overall a subjective experience. So, yes, you should go to film school. Not everybody can. But going to film, like, listen to Kevin Smith talk about film school, man. Like, he talks a lot about a lot of things he didn't learn in film school, but he'll always talk about how film school was invaluable to him. You should go to film school if you want to pursue a thing in film. If you absolutely cannot go to film school for whatever reason, okay, that's a disadvantage, but you can still try to achieve your goals. Just understand you're at a disadvantage. For me personally, I know when I was at AMC and stuff like that, I would always look for a degree. I wouldn't say that a lack of a degree disqualified somebody from my consideration, but guess what? If I came down to 2 people and it's like, okay, these are 2 very good people and they're both very close, but one's got a degree in like journalism or stuff like that and the other doesn't, guess what? I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the person who went, did the work, and actually learned for a bunch of years and got a degree in journalism. And I think a lot of places will do that. So I think if you can give yourself a leg up in that way, you should. I think if you can give yourself a leg up in the way, you should, but it is not a deal breaker if you don't. You just have to understand you're putting yourself at a bit of a disadvantage. Doesn't mean you can't overcome it. You can, and there are examples of that. But it's good to do it if you can. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. All right, Ben Rayner. Breaking news, AMC just reversed and now will require masks, being reported in the Hollywood Reporter. Well, hell, look at that. Hold a second. AMC masks. Let me just look this up here. And yes, CNBC saying AMC reverses course, will require guests to wear masks at its theaters. Well, look at that. Look at that. We were just talking about it. I said, I just think they should be doing that. They should require people wearing masks. And now that they've done it, thank you for the breaking news on that, Ben. I appreciate that very much. See, good things can happen when you talk about them, folks. Good things can happen when you talk about it. That's good to see. All right. Now I can feel more comfortable going. All right. Final question of the day, guys. And I just realized we've gone overtime. But final question of the day. Oh my gosh, a $50 tip from Alex Detman. Thank you so much for sending that in, man. If there's a question here, we're going to segment this out and you're going to see your own question up as its own standalone video on the channel. We're behind right now, so just give us a couple of weeks to get that all set. But anyway, Alex Detman writes, as always, John, you are the glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, my friend. Well, thank you so much for that, Alex. My favorite actor of all time is Denzel Washington. He's one of the best. What are your top 5 Denzel movies? Mine are Man on Fire, Glory, Training Day, Equalizer, The Seagull? I'm not familiar with that one. Thank you for all that you do. Well, Alex, I don't do top 5s. So I don't do top 5s. But I will tell you some of my favorites. Absolutely, one that he won an Academy Award for is Training Day. That's huge. Now, let me bring up his IMDb just to see if there's anything I'm missing. Just to make sure there's nothing I'm missing here. Okay, so one is absolutely Training Day. That's got to be up there. Another one that wasn't hugely successful, but his performance in Fences was fantastic. Also, his movie Esquire. Damn it, what was it again? Esquire. Something Esquire, and I'm forgetting the name of it. Roman J. Esquire. That was it. His performance in Roman J. Esquire. Roman J. Esquire wasn't an amazing film. It wasn't amazing. His performance was incredible. Cry Freedom, Glory, The Hurricane, Training Day. By the way, there's a little movie he did with Christopher Pine, and I got to look it up now because the one with the train. I can't remember the name of it. Not Two Guns, not Flight. Flight, terrible movie. His performance was fantastic in it, though. Really liked him in Unstoppable. Look, I get it. Not everybody liked Unstoppable. I understand that, and I get why. This is a little movie he did with Chris Pine, but I am telling you, let's just look at the stupid IMDb rating, 6.8. Give me a break. I am telling you, this is a really good little movie. And I actually thought, even though it is a lighter, different kind of Denzel Washington film, it might have been the last one he did with Tony Scott. Anyway, this was a really good little film, and I thought his performance was fantastic in it. I thought his performance was utterly fantastic in it, even though it's not like an Oscar kind of movie at all. But I thought he was really good, and it's one of the ones that I think people overlook. I think people overlook that one a lot. Anyway, there's that. But listen, man, I could literally do like a full video, like a full 20-minute video of just looking at the incredible career of Denzel Washington. Because he's like Spielberg, right? Like, you forget just how great Spielberg is. And you forget just how many great movies he's done until you sit down and start reading through the list and you're like, oh my God, yeah, he did this and he did that and he did this and he did this and he did this and this, spanning multiple decades. It's incredible. You start going through like Antoine Fisher, John Q, Training Day, Remember the Titans. Of course, we were just talking about that the other day. The Hurricane. I loved him in The Bone Collector. The Siege. Oh, you probably didn't. You probably meant The Siege, not Siegel. Anyway. Two more regular stuff. Book of Eli, which, by the way, another one that I think was a great movie, but him playing the lead character in that, it was an amazing performance. I love his Equalizer film. So we haven't even talked about the Equalizer. We mentioned Fences and stuff like that as well. He's got a Macbeth movie coming out. I mean, you start going down the career of Denzel Washington, it's like, oh yeah, we all know Denzel's great. But then you forget how great he is until you actually start running down. Let's go earlier in his career. Let's go even much earlier. Courage Under Fire. That's one I totally forgot about. Courage Under Fire. Of course, the one of my favorites that he did with Gene Hackman called Crimson Tide, the submarine movie. Actually, somebody brought that one up the other day, if I'm not mistaken. That was a great one as well. Obviously, then his an Academy turn in Malcolm X. Or we already talked about Glory. Cry Freedom. Anyway, now you're getting really early in his career. But again, he's one of those guys who is like a Spielberg. You forget how great he was, and so you start going through all of his stuff, which is just intense. Anyway, so thank you again for sending that in, Alex, and thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. We appreciate it here. All right, a couple more came in. We'll just cover these quick. Jaron Morris writes, John, if you do, please brace yourself. And I know you're not good with console games. Just watch the cutscene movie, but brace yourself. Yeah, I've heard that Last of Us 2 is an emotional wreck roller coaster of a game. I heard it's absolutely brilliant in its narrative, so I am looking forward to trying it out. And then Jaron also writes, thoughts on Dominic Cruz. I love him, especially how all the injuries he suffered. For him to have come back was heartfelt and inspiring. I really like Dominic Cruz as a fighter. I really do. He is a great... elusive, tremendously unique style of fighting. I honestly thought his fight against Henry Cejudo was stopped too soon. I mean, look, he was losing that fight, but I didn't think it should have been stopped when it was stopped. But he might have ultimately lost that fight, whatever. But I really do like Dominic Cruz's fighting style. His fight against TJ Dillashaw was great. I loved his fight against TJ Dillashaw. So I really like him. And yeah, his constant coming back through massive, like, what would for a lot of people be career-ending injuries has been inspirational. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show, and that'll wrap up another week of shows here on the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of this. Don't forget, guys, we are going to have an open mic tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can start sending in questions right now for that show, and they'll be amongst the first questions that get answered at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question on the show, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time while you do it. Guys, special thank you to all you guys who did send in questions for today's show, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. And of course, you supported the channel, and all of us here, thank you for that. By the way, guys, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, don't forget, we announced this on our Patreon page, that we have a Patreon meet and greet Zoom call. So we're going to be having a Zoom meetup, video meetup for all you guys who are Patreon supporters on Sunday. Go and check the Patreon page for all the details, and I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys there for that. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.